I should be racing to get there. But I'm not. The clock on my Rolex ticks in perfect rhythm with my pulse, steady and precise, a quiet reminder that I am late. That I should be rushing. That I should care. But instead, I drive slowly. My Tesla glides through the streets of my childhood, past houses that look like they were cut from the same blueprint, white fences, pristine lawns, perfectly symmetrical porches adorned with seasonal wreaths. Everything just as I remember. And yet, nothing feels familiar. I ease around the final turn, and there it is, the Carter estate. Massive. Stately. Cold. A white brick colonial that looms against the twilight sky, its perfectly trimmed hedges and grand columns giving it the air of a place that belongs in magazines. Or maybe a museum. Because it doesn't feel like a home. Not to me. Not anymore. A tightness coils in my stomach, sharp and familiar. My grip on the steering wheel stiffens as I roll to a stop, not in the driveway, but on the street. I don't even consider pulling in. That space isn't for me. It never was. I scan the driveway, lined with the usual lineup of status symbols: Daniel's black Escalade, Samantha's hybrid SUV, my father's classic Mercedes. Each vehicle parked with the ease of belonging, a silent declaration of their place in this family. I check my reflection in the rearview mirror. Hair smoothed into submission. Makeup flawless. Tailored blazer, crisp and calculated. Armor. Because this house is a battlefield, and I've learned exactly how to navigate its landmines. I take a breath. In. Out. Roll my shoulders back. Step out onto the pavement. The air is crisp and sharp, carrying the scent of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and an unshakable sense of duty, as if the very atmosphere here is steeped in expectation. My heels click against the driveway, each step deliberate. I don't knock. I never do. This isn't a homecoming. It's a performance, and I already know my role. From the kitchen, my mother's voice drifts through the hallway, light, effortless, cutting. Oh. We were about to start without you. No hug. No warmth. Just those words, a dagger sheathed in silk. I force a smile. Client emergency, I lie smoothly. Because the truth, that I spent 15 minutes parked outside, just trying to breathe, would only prove them right. A flicker of movement catches my eye. My father, standing in the hallway, bourbon in hand, gaze sweeping over my outfit in that familiar, assessing way. The same way he scans quarterly reports. The same way he measures investments. One of these days, Natalie, you'll find something more important than that job. There it is. His words land exactly as they're meant to, a reminder, a dismissal, a warning. My smile holds, but something behind my ribs tightens. Nice to see you too, Dad. I don't wait for his response. I follow the murmur of voices toward the dining room, where the golden ones, Daniel and Samantha, are already seated. And then I see it. The extra place settings at the main table, the fine china, the crystal glassware, the polished silverware catching the glow of the chandelier. And across the room, in the corner, almost out of sight. A second table. Smaller. Lower to the ground. Plastic. Brightly colored. Lined with tiny chairs. A children's table. I blink. Once. Twice. Surely, I'm imagining this. Natalie, my mother calls from behind me, her voice pleasant, unbothered, final. Go ahead and sit at the kids' table. We've got a spot for you there. Stepping inside is like stepping into a perfectly preserved memory, one that's been polished and staged for display, but never lived in. The air is warm, thick with the scent of roasting turkey, cinnamon, and something more elusive, expectation, silent and suffocating. The chandelier above casts a golden glow over the foyer, catching the gleam of the marble floors, the mahogany staircase, the carefully curated family portraits lining the walls. Smiling faces frozen in time, arranged with expert precision. I'm in some of them. But never in the center. Never where it matters. I let the door close behind me with a soft click, the final barrier between who I've become and who I'm expected to be. From the kitchen, voices swell and spill into the hallway, a symphony of overlapping conversations that flow seamlessly, until mine disrupts the rhythm. A beat of silence. A pause just long enough to register my presence. Then, the casual facade resumes. Oh. We were about to start without you. There it is. The first cut of the night, wrapped in polite indifference. My mother glances up from the kitchen island, where she's expertly carving a perfectly golden turkey. Her hands don't falter. Her voice doesn't lift in surprise or warmth. It's just an observation. Not, "I'm so glad you made it." Not, "We missed you." Just a reminder that my absence wouldn't have been a disruption. I swallow down the response that rises to my lips. Instead, I lift my chin, smooth my blazer, and smile. "Client emergency," I offer, my voice light, effortless. A lie, but a convenient one. Because the truth? The truth is I sat in my car for 15 minutes, staring at this house, trying to convince myself to walk inside. The truth is I almost didn't. Across the room, my father appears in the hallway, a glass of bourbon cradled in his palm. He doesn't move toward me. Doesn't greet me. He just stands there, watching. Assessing. His gaze schemes over my outfit, my posture, my expression, measuring, calculating, comparing. "One of these days, Natalie, you'll find something more important than that job." The words are spoken so casually, like a script he's rehearsed for years. A quiet dismissal wrapped in the illusion of fatherly wisdom. My grip tightens around my clutch. My smile doesn't waver. "Nice to see you too, Dad." I step past him before he can say anything else, my heels tapping against the polished floors as I follow the murmur of conversation into the dining room. The scene unfolds like a painting I've seen 100 times, each detail familiar, each role already cast. My sister, Samantha, is at the center of it all, standing over the dining table, arranging flowers with effortless grace. Her perfectly manicured fingers adjust each petal like she's crafting a masterpiece. A homemaker, a mother, the golden child who walked the path they paved for her. Beside her, Daniel lounges in a chair, phone in hand, barely acknowledging my presence. He doesn't have to. His place at the table is already secured. And then, my mother's voice cuts through the air again. "Natalie, go ahead and sit at the kids' table. We've got a spot for you there." I freeze. The world tilts for a fraction of a second, reality bending around the absurdity of what I just heard. I turn, slowly, carefully, as if I might have misheard. As if she might correct herself. But there it is. A second table. Pushed into the corner. Lower to the ground. Plastic. Brightly colored. Surrounded by tiny chairs meant for tiny people. A children's table. The setup looks almost comical, bright colors, tiny chairs, and a stack of juice boxes like some kind of afterthought. Like an unspoken rule that I don't belong where the adults are. I blink. Once. Twice. The words sink into my bones like ice. The kids' table? My voice is steady, but there's an edge to it now. A sharpness my mother either doesn't hear or chooses to ignore. She simply gestures toward the main table, the one set with fine china and crystal stemware. "We need the space for Ryan's parents," she says, smiling. "They're joining us this year." Ryan's parents. People I've met twice. They get a seat at the table. I don't. Something inside me cracks, fractures along an old, familiar fault line. The laughter, the conversation, the warmth of the room, it all continues around me, as if this is normal. As if this isn't a statement, written in plastic and paper, loud enough to drown out the clinking of crystal and the hum of familial affection. And in this moment, standing on the edge of exile, I realize something. It was never about the table. It was about what the table represented. And for the first time in my life, I am done pretending not to see it. Before I share what happened next, the moment that left the entire room frozen in stunned silence. I want to connect with you, my incredible viewers. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were being treated differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for your worth, hit that like button, because trust me, this story is far from over. I exhale slowly, forcing my shoulders to stay square as I step forward. If they want to put me in my place, fine. But tonight? I'm choosing where that place is. The cold night air hits me like a slap, sharp and sobering. For a second, I just stand there, my breath curling in soft white wisps around me. Inside, the warmth of the house hums on, golden and inviting. Laughter spills through the walls, the clinking of glassware, the effortless ease of people who never once considered that I might leave. Because why would I? I never have before. My fingers tighten around the lapels of my coat, pulling it closer, as if that alone will steady the tremor in my hands. Not from fear. Not from regret. But from the sheer gravity of this moment. Because this is the first time I've ever chosen myself over them. Behind me, the door swings open. Natalie. My mother's voice isn't frantic, isn't panicked. It's sharp, clipped, controlled. The kind of tone she reserved for moments when things weren't going according to plan. Where are you going? Dinner isn't over. I turn slowly, meeting her gaze through the glow of the porch light. She looks at me the way she always does, not with understanding, not with warmth, but with the quiet disappointment of someone watching a carefully set table be overturned. Because that's what I've done, haven't I? I've flipped the script. I've stepped out of my assigned role. And she doesn't know what to do with me now. Enjoy your dinner. My voice is steady, controlled, so perfectly even that I almost don't recognize it. A single muscle twitches in her jaw. Natalie, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. Of course. Because in this house, walking away from humiliation isn't self-respect, it's dramatics. Drawing boundaries isn't strength, it's overreacting. My fingers curl into fists. The words press against my ribs, heavy and aching, desperate to be let out. But I don't give her a speech. I don't try to explain myself. Because the truth is, she already knows. They all do. Get home safe, Mom. I turn before she can say anything else, before the weight of her disapproval can dig its claws into me like it always has. I reach for my car door, slide into the driver's seat, and shut out the world with a decisive, satisfying click. For a moment, I just sit there, hands resting on the steering wheel, breathing. I did it. I actually did it. The realization sinks in slow and deep, curling around my spine, flooding through my chest. I walked away. And the world didn't end. My phone buzzes against my thigh. Once. Twice. A third time. Then, a continuous flood of vibrations, the digital aftershock of my decision. I don't have to look to know what they say. Daniel, stop being childish. Just come back inside. Samantha, Mom is freaking out. Just apologize and fix this. Dad, enough of this nonsense. Get home now. The irony burns. I was literally sitting at a children's table 10 minutes ago, but now I'm the one being called childish? I almost laugh. Almost. Another text comes in, this one different. Emily, 13, Samantha's daughter. I get it, Aunt Natalie. They make me feel invisible too. I stare at the screen. Something deep inside me splinters. Not in pain. Not in regret. But in absolute, blinding clarity. Because it was never just about me. It was never just about one dinner, one insult, one exclusion. It was about a pattern, a cycle so deeply ingrained that even a 13-year-old could see it. And if I don't break it, no one will. I put the car in drive, the soft hum of the Tesla's engine steadying me as I pull away from the curb. The house shrinks in my rearview mirror. And with every mile I put between us, something inside me uncoils, untangles. Let's go. For the first time in years, I don't feel small. I don't feel other. I don't feel like an afterthought. I just feel like me. And that? That feels a lot like freedom. The city lights blur through my windshield as I drive, the soft hum of the Tesla's engine the only sound in the car. The night outside is quiet, steady, the exact opposite of what's happening inside my phone. The screen won't stop lighting up. Text after text. Call after call. I glance down at the notifications flooding in, a digital avalanche of family outrage. Daniel, are you seriously making a scene over seating? Grow up. Samantha, Mom won't stop crying. Just come back and fix this. Dad, enough of this nonsense. Get back here now. I exhale through my nose, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. There it is. The cycle in full motion. Minimization. You're overreacting. Guilt. Look what you've done to Mom. Authority. Come back. Obey. Fall back in line. I know this script by heart. And for the first time, I refuse to read my lines. A new text flashes across the screen. Mom, Natalie, please. We're just trying to keep the family together. Why do you always have to be difficult? I laugh. A sharp, humorless sound. Keep the family together. Translation: why can't you just accept your place? My phone buzzes again. A voicemail this time. I tap it onto speaker as I drive, my father's voice filling the silence. Natalie, this is ridiculous. You're embarrassing yourself. And us. We don't air family business like this. Get home. Now. Not a request. A command. I feel it in my bones, the expectation, the entitlement, the sheer weight of his authority pressing down. But tonight? Tonight, it doesn't touch me. Because tonight, I walked away. The voicemail ends. Another text pings in, but this one is different. Emily, 13. I get it, Aunt Natalie. They make me feel invisible too. I blink. Read it again. Then again. The words settle deep, wrapping around something fragile inside me, something I hadn't even realized was still there. She sees it. Even at 13, she already knows what it feels like to be edged out, to be made smaller, to be treated like a background character in her own family. It's not just me. I pull into a nearly empty 24-hour diner, neon lights flickering against the pavement. A familiar place, a quiet escape. The bell jingles softly as I step inside, the warmth hitting me like a slow exhale. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a sharp wit, glances up from behind the counter. You look like you need coffee. I huff out a breath, sliding into a booth. And maybe a slice of pie. She smirks. Rough night? You could say that. She nods, like she already knows the story without me saying a word. Maybe she's seen it before, the tired woman in the power blazer, the eyes that hold too many things unsaid, the weight of family expectations wrapped too tightly around her ribs. The coffee arrives first, dark and steady. A grounding force. I sip it slowly, scrolling through my phone's photo gallery. Swipe. Christmas, 3 years ago. My family clustered around the tree, arms draped over each other, matching smiles. And me? Half cropped out of the frame. Swipe. College graduation. My parents and siblings at the forefront, their faces glowing with pride. I'm in the background, holding my honors diploma just slightly out of focus. Swipe. A screenshot of an email from my father, sent to Daniel and Samantha, but accidentally copied to me. Investment opportunity, too complex to include Natalie. She wouldn't understand it anyway. A bitter taste spreads across my tongue, sharper than the coffee. This isn't one night. This is a lifetime of being small enough to fit into the space they allow me. And for the first time, I see it all clearly. The pie arrives, golden crust, tart cherries, a simple comfort in a world that doesn't make sense. I pick up my phone, my thumb hovering over the family group chat. And then, before I can second guess myself, I type. Natalie, the perfect family, always making sure the youngest one knows her place. I attach the Christmas photo, the one where I'm barely in frame. And then, I keep typing. Natalie, this isn't about a table. This is about a lifetime of being treated as an afterthought. When you all actually see me as an equal, let me know. My thumb hovers over the send button. For a moment, doubt creeps in, curling against my ribs, whispering old familiar things. You're making it worse. Just keep the peace. This is how it's always been. And then, Emily's text flashes in my mind. They make me feel invisible too. No. Not anymore. I press send. Then, I do something I've never done before. I power off my phone completely. No waiting for their responses. No second guessing. No more playing by their rules. The pie tastes better than any Thanksgiving meal I can remember. Because for the first time in my life, I am full. Full of clarity. Full of something sharp and untamed and entirely my own. For the first time, I am no longer waiting for permission to take up space. I already have. And I am never shrinking again. The diner hums with quiet conversations, the clatter of silverware against ceramic, the occasional low murmur of the radio playing a song I half recognize. The warmth of the coffee cup seeps into my palms, grounding me, steadying me in a way I didn't know I needed. Outside, the night stretches endlessly, the neon open 24-hour sign casting a soft glow against the pavement. The world keeps moving, indifferent to my family's outrage, to the storm brewing in unread messages on my phone. And for the first time, I am indifferent to it, too. I let my head tip back against the booth, exhaling a slow breath. The space between my ribs feels looser, lighter, as if I've spent years holding something in, and now, finally, I've let it go. The bell over the door jingles. Natalie Carter? I glance up. A man stands near the entrance, tall, broad-shouldered, familiar in a way that tugs at something distant. It takes a second, then. Mark Reynolds? His smile is surprised, then easy. Warm. Real. The kind of expression I haven't seen all night. Wow, he exhales, stepping closer. I thought that was you. It's been, what? 15 years? At least, I say, blinking at him. AP Chemistry, senior year. The lab partner I spent hours debating over equations with, who always smelled faintly like fresh-cut grass from lacrosse practice. He slides into the seat across from me, his eyes scanning my face with quiet curiosity. You look different, he says, then tilts his head. Lighter, somehow. Something in me stills. Lighter. I almost laugh at the irony, but the truth of it sinks in before I can push it away. I finally put something down, I admit, surprising myself. He nods, as if he understands, even though he couldn't possibly know what tonight has been. But maybe he recognizes the look of someone who has finally stepped out of a weight that was never theirs to carry. A fresh cup of coffee lands in front of me, courtesy of the waitress, who doesn't ask questions, doesn't pry, just refills my cup like she's seen 100 versions of this story before. Mark gestures toward my phone, still dark, still silenced. Family? I huff out a breath. Something like that. He doesn't push. Just nods, lets the silence stretch between us, easy and comfortable in a way nothing with my family has ever been. I wrap my hands around the coffee cup, letting the warmth anchor me, and then, I reach for my bag. I pull out my journal, flipping to a blank page. At the top, I write a single word. Boundaries. Then, with a clarity I didn't know I had, I start writing. 1. I will not attend family gatherings where I am treated as less than an equal. 2. I will not justify my career, my choices, or my worth. 3. I will meet them on neutral ground, not in their home, where they hold the power. 4. I will walk away the moment I am disrespected. 5. I do not need their approval to be whole. The last one sticks in my throat, heavy, but when I write it down, I feel something shift. This time, it's real. This time, I mean it. Mark watches me, not asking, not interrupting. Then, after a moment, he smirks. I don't know what you're writing, but you look like someone who just made a hell of a decision. I tap my pen against the paper. I think I did. Outside, the neon sign flickers against the night, casting my reflection faintly in the diner window. And for the first time, when I see myself, I don't feel like a shadow of who I'm supposed to be. I feel like me. Unapologetic. Unburdened. Unbound. I finish my coffee, tuck my journal into my bag, and finally, breathe. Tomorrow, my phone will light up again. My family will demand explanations, apologies, compliance. But tonight? Tonight, I choose silence. And in that silence, I find something I never expected. Peace. Real, untouchable, undeniable peace. And I am never letting it go. The first text comes in early the next morning. Mom, Natalie, your father and I have decided we're willing to forgive you for last night's display. I almost laugh. Willing to forgive me. As if walking away from humiliation was some kind of crime. As if standing up for myself was an offense that needed absolution. A minute later, another text pings through. Daniel, we're having a family meeting tonight. 7 p.m. at Mom and Dad's. You should be there. I let my phone rest face down on my kitchen counter, staring at it in the early morning quiet. I know exactly what this is. This isn't a meeting. It's an ambush. It's my family scrambling to reassert their control, to remind me of my place, to drag me back into the role I was always meant to play, the agreeable one, the compliant one, the one who never pushes back too hard. But that version of me? She doesn't exist anymore. I take a sip of coffee, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue. My eyes flick toward the open journal on my dining table, last night's words still bold and unshaken. 1. I will not attend family gatherings where I am treated as less than an equal. 2. I will not justify my career, my choices, or my worth. 3. I will meet them on neutral ground, not in their home, where they hold the power. 4. I will walk away the moment I am disrespected. 5. I do not need their approval to be whole. My own handwriting stares back at me, unwavering. I reach for my phone and type out a response. Natalie, if you want to talk, we'll meet somewhere neutral. I'll be at the Bellwood Cafe at 7. If you want a conversation, you'll come to me. I hit send, then turn off my phone. Let them decide. The Bellwood Cafe is quiet in the evenings, a warm, softly lit space tucked between the city's glass and steel skyline. I arrive early, choosing a table near the window, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea I don't drink. For the first time in my life, I'm not the one waiting for them. I don't know if they'll come. I don't know if they'll choose their control over me, their ability to dictate the terms. But I know one thing, I am not going back to that house. At exactly 7:10 p.m., the door swings open, and they walk in together. Mom, Dad, Daniel, Samantha. A united front. I expect them to hesitate, to glance around like they don't belong in a place that isn't theirs, but they don't. They sit. Mom's lips are pressed tight, her fingers smoothing over an invisible wrinkle on the tablecloth. A calculated pause before the attack. Dad leans back, fingers drumming against the wood, eyes scanning me like I'm some kind of problem to be solved. Daniel exhales sharply, already impatient. Samantha looks nervous. Like she's realizing for the first time that things have shifted, and she doesn't know how to fix it. For a moment, none of us speak. Then, my father clears his throat. I think we all agree that family unity is what matters most here. Of course. Because it's never about the incident. Never about what they did. It's about making sure I don't disrupt the carefully curated harmony of their world. I lift my tea to my lips, taking my time before answering. That's interesting, I say lightly. Because last night, I didn't feel like part of a unified family at all. Mom exhales sharply. Oh, For God's sake, Natalie, it was just a seating arrangement. I set my cup down, my voice even. No, it wasn't. Samantha shifts uncomfortably. Danielle scoffs. Jesus, Nat, you're really blowing this out of proportion. There it is. The minimization. The gaslighting. The desperate attempt to rewrite history. But I came prepared. I pull out my phone, scrolling deliberately through my photos, my messages, my receipts. I slide it across the table. The Christmas photo, the one where I'm barely in frame. The college graduation picture, where they're at the front, and I'm blurred in the background. The screenshot of Dad's email, the one where he excluded me from a family investment because he thought I wouldn't understand. The silence at the table is deafening. Mom's fingers curl slightly against the tablecloth. Daniel's jaw ticks. Dad lets out a slow breath through his nose. Samantha looks away, staring at the flickering candle between us. This isn't about a table, I say softly. This is about a lifetime of being made small. Of being treated as less than. Of being an afterthought in my own family. My mother is the first to break. That's not fair. I tilt my head. Isn't it? No one answers. Because they know. They've always known. I lean back, my voice calm. Here's what's going to happen. Mom blinks. Dad stiffens. I will not spend another moment in a space where I am not respected. I will not fight for scraps of acknowledgement at a table that was never meant for me. If you want me in your lives, it has to be as an equal. Otherwise? I shrug. I'm perfectly fine on my own. Samantha swallows hard. Daniel shifts but says nothing. And then, my father exhales, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Well. You've certainly made yourself clear, he says, voice low. I meet his gaze head on. I've been grown. You're just finally seeing it. Another silence. Then, slowly, my mother speaks. Do you think it's really possible to change how we've always been? And for the first time, I hear it, something real in her voice. I don't have a simple answer. Maybe they can change. Maybe they won't. But I know one thing, I'm done waiting for them to decide who I get to be. So I just smile. That's up to you. I stand, grab my coat, and walk away, on my terms. And for the first time in my life, I don't look back. The scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon fills my apartment, wrapping around me like something warm, something real. The kind of warmth that isn't forced, that isn't laced with expectation or obligation. The kind that feels like home. Laughter drifts from the dining area, the clinking of glasses, the shuffle of chairs being pulled out. It's Thanksgiving. But this time, it's mine. I check my watch, not in anticipation of an escape, not to count the minutes until I can leave, but simply to note that everything is right on schedule. Behind me, Emily appears in the kitchen doorway, her sleeves rolled up, a smudge of flour dusting her cheek. Aunt Natalie, is this enough sage for the stuffing? I glance at the fresh herbs in her palm, the way she holds them carefully, waiting for my approval. Like what I think matters. Perfect, I say, squeezing her shoulder. You've got a natural talent for this. Her face lights up, the kind of glow that only comes from being seen, from being told you belong. I step back, taking it all in. The long dining table stretches through the living room, set with plates, glasses, and silverware, not fine china, not some show of perfection, but something better. Something used. Something real. One table. No folding chairs in the corner. No exile. No silent reminders of where anyone does or doesn't belong. This is how it should have always been. Behind me, my mother enters the kitchen, a casserole dish balanced in her hands. For a moment, I expect hesitation. Expect her to ask me where to put it in that carefully controlled voice she always uses when stepping into unfamiliar territory. But she doesn't. Where would you like this, Natalie? I blink. Not here, let me put this down. Not I made this, so I'll decide where it goes. Just a question. A choice. An acknowledgement that this is my space, my home, my rules. And she waits for my answer. On the sideboard, I say finally. She nods and places it exactly where I've indicated. A small moment. An ordinary one. And yet, it feels monumental. Across the room, my father hovers near the wine rack, a glass of bourbon in his hand, untouched. That advertising campaign you developed for the children's hospital, he says, voice low, measured. Quite impressive. I glance up, meeting his eyes. He doesn't say it like it pains him. Doesn't say it like he's forcing the words out. He says it because he means it. Thanks, Dad. It's the closest thing to an apology I'll ever get. And maybe, that's enough. Daniel appears from the living room, phone absent for once, a rare sight. Natalie, got a minute? I raise a brow. Depends. Are you about to tell me to grow up again? He exhales, shaking his head. No. Just, career stuff. He hesitates, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm considering a lateral move to Thompson and Brooks. The pay cut would be temporary, but the creative opportunities. He trails off, uncertainty flickering in his expression. I nearly drop the serving spoon. Daniel. Asking me for career advice. The same Daniel who once told Dad I wouldn't understand investments anyway. I cross my arms, leaning against the counter. Depends, I say, tilting my head. What's your 5-year plan? He huffs a quiet laugh, shaking his head. Figures you'd ask that. Progress. Small. But undeniable. A soft cry cuts through the conversation, and I turn to see Samantha approaching, her newborn cradled against her shoulder. Would you mind holding her while I help set up? She asks, already shifting the baby toward me. Not an afterthought. Not a dismissal. A trust. A quiet understanding. I take the baby gently, feeling her tiny weight settle against my chest, her heartbeat steady and sure against mine. She blinks up at me, her tiny fingers curling against my sweater, warm and weightless in my arms. We understand each other, don't we? This place is gorgeous, Dad comments suddenly, glancing around my apartment. Smart investment in this neighborhood. I let out a slow breath, something unfamiliar curling in my chest. Not criticism. Not dismissal. A compliment. Mom reappears from the dining area, measuring spoons in hand. Natalie, could you sit the children? She freezes mid-sentence, color draining from her face. The room goes silent. Because we all know what she was about to say. The words hang heavy in the air, a ghost of the past, a habit she didn't even think about before it left her lips. She swallows, then corrects herself. Actually, I'd love your help arranging everyone together. You always know exactly where people should be. I stare at her. For a moment, I don't know if I believe it. But then, I see it. The effort. The change. The choice to rewrite the script. And that? That matters. Happy to, I say simply. And I mean it. The meal is loud, messy, full of overlapping conversations and laughter that doesn't feel forced. For once, I don't feel like an outsider. I don't feel like I have to prove anything. I don't feel like I have to shrink. Instead, I sit at the table I built, surrounded by people who are finally learning how to see me. Some traditions deserve to be broken, so that better ones can be built. And this? This is just the beginning. The night settles over the city, a quiet hum of car engines and distant laughter filtering through my open window. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon that still lingers in my apartment, a reminder of a day that, for the first time, truly belonged to me. I stand in my living room, running my fingers along the edges of a framed photo on the wall. Not of my family. Not of the past. But of my own life. A shot from the marketing campaign that launched my career. A group photo from a team I built from the ground up. A moment captured during my first solo trip to Italy, standing on a sunlit street, wine glass in hand, smiling like I had nowhere else to be but there. For years, this wall held only one kind of image, the ones my mother insisted I display, portraits of a family that never truly included me. But now? Now, those frames sit neatly stacked in a box, tucked away in my closet. Not erased. Just removed. Out of sight. Out of the space where I wake up every morning and remind myself exactly who I am. The silence in my apartment isn't empty. It's full. Full of laughter that doesn't come at my expense. Full of conversations that don't require me to fight for a voice. Full of space. My space. And yet, somewhere in that silence, my phone buzzes from across the room. I glance at it, exhaling slowly. I already know what's waiting. I pick it up, flipping it over in my palm. The screen lights up with a single notification. Emily, 13 tonight was the best Thanksgiving ever. Thank you for making a place for me, Aunt Natalie. A breath catches in my throat. Because that's it, isn't it? This was never just about a table. Never just about one dinner, one insult, one moment of exclusion. It was about a cycle that needed to break. And tonight, it finally did. I typed back a simple message, the words feeling more solid, more real, more mine than anything I've ever written before. You will always have a place with me. I hit send. Then, I set my phone down and turned back toward the table, where the last flickering candle glows against the empty plates and half-full wine glasses. A table that, for the first time, holds exactly who and what I choose. And as I take my seat, pouring myself one final glass of wine, I realize something. I have never been more full. Not just from the meal. Not just from the warmth of the evening. But from the undeniable, unshakable knowledge that I no longer have to ask for space. I've taken it. And I am never giving it back.